Señoras y señores, Film God Familia, thank you, welcome. I am Isusko Garcia, your host of this now running into its 7th year podcast. For those of you first listening, welcome. We are a podcast that based in the UK. I work mainly in short form and commercials, and so I kind of talk to people, because back in the day I'd have lots of runners and work experience kind of just emailing me going, what'd you do, how'd you do it, yada yada, bloody blah. The classic email, give me some work, which I'm sure any HODs out there are probably getting inundated with those type of emails as well at the minute. And everyone that I'm speaking, the majority of people that I'm speaking to, it's strange. I think that seems to be the word that is being used on many a mouth, especially in the short form world. But the podcast was designed to get someone on, talk about what they do, how they do it, how they got in. So those early eps, those 2019 eps, that was me finding my feet. 2020 we just start recording 2, sometimes 3 a day, posting 1 a day. But there's some great stories there. And so we're here, 2026. We had a heat wave. We're in the midst of World Cup football, soccer, and there's always just something about a little bit of sun. Those people that don't normally have a happy face, but they got a grumpy face. A little bit of sun, glasses are on, boom, smile comes out. Morning, morning, morning. So I'm loving it. My Spanish blood enjoys the heat. Not too much. Last week before, it was a little bit too much. But the British side of me is very proud that I just spoke about the weather. And so I'm going to start doing some kind of shorter, smaller eps as well, just to keep them ticking over, little kind of 15-minute updates, and just scour the internet. I guess the sad news that I read today was another one of our UK post houses, number 8 London, has announced that it's entering insolvency proceedings. And this comes off the back of the last year and a half. We've had Halo and Evolutions, Glassworks, Jellyfish Pictures, MPC, The Mill. So that current model is adjusting, which I think also in the world of commercials in London, I think is also adjusting. And it's been adjusting for a while. And I think we're all still kind of finding our feet, because every time we seem to think we've hit terra firma, something comes along. So to all of you wonderful human beings that work in our industry, I just want to send you massive love. I just want to send you massive, massive love. And we've said it on podcasts before, and we will say it again. But in case you're not working as much as you would normally, it has nothing to do. Hey, it might do. But the likelihood is, as us freelance workers are, we turn up, we give our all, we have a smile no matter what's going on, and we crack on. So if the phone call isn't ringing and you are sending out those kind of texts and emails to people seeing if they've got any work on, it's not because of how good you are as a crew member. I just want everyone to understand that. Nothing, almost nothing to do with who you are as a person. We're in flux. We had 24, what was the phrase? Survive to 25. Then we had 25, and it was God knows what. God knows. Let's get through to 26, and 26 has come and feels like Groundhog Day for most part, and for the majority of people. So even if this intro, and you only listen to the intro, if all you get away from this is that everything will sell and we will have an industry. And I know it's hard and I know it's tough, because I am there with you in those moments. But I do have faith. And I know the elephant in the room is AI. And you just have to look across the pond to America, and all these firms that are kind of letting people go in their thousands. We have, as a film crew family, we're kind of hardened to it. We don't know what tomorrow, next week, 2 months will bring. And what it might be is that all of you that are listening, your karma points will come because you're going to have a friend or two who is used to a 9 to 5, who isn't used to this freelance life, who doesn't understand it, the fear or the pressures get on top of them. So let's just keep an eye out for the uninitiated into this wonderful, beautiful world that we call freelance. And I guess today's episode kind of ties into that intro quite nicely, because yes, the industry in certain sectors will always be busy. Currently, those big Hollywoods, we're keeping things ticking over. But today's episode wants to just dig into the parts of the day that some people feel a little bit unsure if they can talk about. And a 10-hour day on camera with an hour's lunch will normally include an hour or two pre-calls for runners, locations, hair and makeup, costume. And we'll probably have an hour or two of D-rig and wrap out at the end, Sparky's art team, But you know who you are. Transport drivers. And so that broken turnaround is an important factor in that long form world. And I saw some posts online. I thought such a brilliant thing that campaign that BECTU were starting and putting out there. And I managed to get the dude that I saw on the Instas and all the social medias. So happy that we had a chat. And for all of you in long form, I think it's a really important episode to have a little listen to. And even for those of you in short form, there's always going to be something. There's always a little nugget, just that little golden bit of wisdom that someone has that you wouldn't have thought about, or you just didn't see it that way. So I look forward to hearing all of your comments and reading them, and keep hitting me up and keep hitting the DMs. It really, really does mean the world to know that people are still listening. And so I send love, I send fortunes, I send abundance, I send all of those words that make you feel great straight from my vocal cords to your eardrums. Beautiful human beings. I love you lots. Let's get into the app.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So, Film God Familia, welcome back to another episode of the Film Gods. We've got a man on who I'd probably say is the most Instagram famous person that we've had on the podcast to date. And I think it probably happened by chance or by out coincidence, because there is a campaign happening at the minute. The BECTU are pushing forward, which is the Broken Turnaround campaign. And our guest today was one of the people that were on the campaign, and there was a lot of videos that were coming out. So when I got the email from BECTU themselves telling us what was happening, I reached out to Spencer, and he introduced me to our wonderful guest today, who in the 10 minutes that we've just been talking offline, I know is going to be an absolute banger of an ep, team. So just well done for tuning in. So straight into it. What is your name and what is your role on the call sheet?
My name is Dudley Cruse, and I am a senior producer in factual and so unscripted, so documentaries. I worked for a long time in what we would call specialist factual, so it's science, history, arts programming, lots of American stuff, National Geographic, Disney, Apple, that kind of thing, and BBC, local UK broadcasters as well. So I did about 20 years in that kind of area.
Which I guess from a Broken Turnaround perspective, just to go straight into that, in the world of documentaries, my instant thing is, well, you're filming what is happening. So what is happening can never stop. I kind of look at like some of these nature documentaries. I'm like, well, how do you call rap? There's something might just happen with those lions or that penguin or So how does an average day, how does an average schedule, how does an average job look? And then where does the turnaround factor come in?
It very much depends on your genre, on how big your show is. I think this has come up actually in meetings with production companies sometimes, is, your observational documentaries, like where you're following the police force and it's a 24-hour thing, that clearly there are exceptional circumstances where you can't just like put the camera down and go home for the day.
Because inevitably that'll be when the most interesting thing happens. Yeah.
But I think our point is that, and I've worked in telly for a long time. There are ways of scheduling those things, and people do it all the time. Things like 24 hours in A&E, it's not the same person. It's shift work. It's Big Brother, all those shows that used to run all the time. It's not the same crew doing the same thing. It's just not physically possible.
No.
And on smaller shows, it's harder. But you are supposed to then, I guess, get downtime and space away from filming. There's a lot of welfare involved in a lot of that too, because you're dealing with the real world. In the stuff I used to work on, or I work on, it's much more that we are creating the sequences. So we're bringing a presenter to a location and we're creating the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
You are still dealing with the real world. It's a lot less predictable. So things go wrong. There's traffic. People don't show up, contributors don't appear, that kind of thing happens all the time, which has knock-on effects on the schedule. But I still think that there are healthy ways of doing it and there are unhealthy ways of doing it. And there is a limit to what people can do. Unfortunately, I think there's a habit and there's a sort of culture, definitely, across film industries and TV, but in ours, there's a definite idea that you simply just have to give up all of your time, all of the time, in a sort of unlimited capacity, and that's just what you agree to, and that's on everything. I'm not even on serious, world-breaking documentaries. It's literally just on factual entertainment shows. They will be like, you'll do a 17-hour day, and then I know stories about people going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up at 6. To carry on. So
why is
those
it so
things are
like it just feels like it's so normal an idea, and anyone that kind of suddenly goes, guys, a normal working day is like 8, 9 hours. Everyone's like, what?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think.
this industry's not for you. What are you talking about? You go, well, no, there has to be a kind of a line drawn somewhere that you go,
Well, I
let's
think
let's think about these people.
even the fact that we are, we all think of a 10-hour day as being, a really great,
Delightful.
a delightful thing. You still
Oh,
that's still 50 hours a week
yeah,
in
but it's
theory.
delightful. 10 hours a day, and this is not me kind of playing the oh, but you go to your local supermarket and you hear some people moaning that they've done an 8 hour shift, and I do think there are times that an 8 hour day would be absolutely delightful, delightful, but we end up
Yeah.
doing 10, 12, 16, 20 plus, and we don't obviously ever from a commercial side of life because that's mainly my background, where I've come from. You never really want to ever put down on paper that it's a 20-hour day, but the idea of like before I started it was 8 hours. That was the working eight. It was 8 hours, and then there was a push to 10, and then there was a potential push to 12, but that got you know pushed back. But are we Are we as an industry fighting a few different things here? Are we one, budgets getting smaller and smaller and people wanting to make 2 days into one a reality for them to one have work, and two, as a crew, is there a propensity to not want to kind of put your head above the pulpit, parapet? I never get the right word. Just because then they go, well, oh, don't get them again. I kind of feel like there's that double-sided
Yeah.
coin happening.
I think we talked about this just now. Like, I think there's a massive power imbalance between the employer and the employee. I think, as I've worked for small companies, I'm highly sympathetic to the financial pressures that all production companies are under. The margins aren't amazing.
Mm,
The clients are demanding more and more for less. I think if you look at some of the budgets coming out of the main UK broadcasters, uh, they're very, very challenging. And yet nobody wants to lower the quality or the amount of programming they're getting. And unfortunately, because of the way the industry is structured, almost like a huge proportion of that stress and change is being put onto the most vulnerable people in the ecosystem, which is the freelance worker. So you have no negotiating position. I mean, definitely in unscripted, you are employed on your own. You join a team, sure, but like you don't want to be the one person who kind of like asks, why is this schedule so crazy?
mm.
And quite frankly, even if you sign a contract that basically says that you agree to pretty much anything. I mean, I've definitely signed contracts that say you will work all of the hours required, in words. And
25 hours. There's only 24 in a day. You will work
well,
25.
yeah, and you sign a 5 day. For a while there was a fashion to sign to be paid for 5 days, but to sign a 6 day contract was a thing that happened for a long time. We all used to be asked to waive our the working time directive
Yes,
that the EU
still
used to
happening.
have, and that's still happening. We get asked to waive that all the time. Essentially, we're asked to just sign over our lives, which and can't complain. Sometimes the jobs are brilliant. You get paid quite well. Sometimes it's not always, but and I've mostly had worked with some amazing companies that really look after people, but unfortunately, like I think one of the things that the union has sort of realized is that fine, we sign these contracts, but something as basic as rest between shifts, which is your turnaround rest, that isn't even being sort of what is the word? That isn't being sort of honored in any way. And
Mm.
often, as you said, I think people are afraid to even ask for that, which is really the most basic level of accommodation for people's ability to work nonstop. I mean, I've worked on shows where people have worked 20, 30 days in a row, no break at all. So
No
filming
seventh day.
No,
No,
so
none of that.
so the crew will often maybe get a seventh day, but often the producers and the directors will still work on that seventh day. In the schedule, it says rest day,
Rest
but
day. But
doesn't
we know it's
exist.
a prep day. No, we know
Yeah,
you're going to get ready
and
for the
so
next day. Yeah.
and often you're up until sort of 1 in the morning prepping the next day's shoot anyway, and then you get back and they're like, great, time to prep for the next one, and so there's no like all of that accumulated time that you haven't had and the rest that you haven't had, and you're off on location. Often, I worked on shows where people were all over the world in lots of different countries. And, I think you have to accept a certain amount of work is going to happen, but it is also unacceptable that that it just becomes normal. And a lot of that comes from not from budgets, but from basically clients and senior bosses knowing that they can get away with it. So they just know. So they know if they change their mind about they want to recast something the day before a shoot, they can do that because people will have to stay up until 3 in the morning recasting, and that happens all the time. So I think what we're saying is actually, if anything, we're sort of tired of asking in a way, and like I think the union is tired of being like, it would be great if we could work together, and obviously we want to work together, and it's a collaborative thing with production companies, but I'm certainly tired of just like hoping somebody will do the right thing.
Yes. But as you said, with budgets kind of getting lower and lower or slashed and slashed, the kind of, but with the output needing to be of the same standard, the only thing that you can do is work longer hours to try and fit that same amount of time in. But actually, it feels slightly disingenuous to think that the quality of the product will be the same if you've got crew doing 14, 15, 16-hour days for 30 days.
Well, it's a creative business. Like, I don't know, like, how are we supposed to be making good creative and craft decisions if we haven't slept,
Yeah.
or, and I think that's part of the question. And I think, there are models already of places where this just isn't necessary, and I forget what it was called, who ran it, but there was a model in Scotland very recently where they reduced the date to 10 hours, and they stuck to it on a production, and it was fine. Like nothing changed. The
Yeah.
show was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
It's just that
Because also
everybody
10
works different.
hours, just to jump in, 10 hours is not so much the earliest call to the latest finish. 10 hours is on camera shooting time. So there's always going to be an hour, maybe 2 hours of pre-calls for
Yeah,
locations, for art team, for hair, makeup, costume, for seconds, for runners. And then post camera wrap, there'll always be D-rig and getting out of hair, makeup, costume and transportation. So it's 10 hours isn't 10 hours. 10 hours actually is 14, but your 14 hours turns into 17, 18. So that 10 hours
yeah,
is I quite like the idea of 10. I as we said before, I kind of come from short form, so we've got an agreement that's called the APA agreement, the Advertising Producers Association, that has an agreement with clients um, and ad agencies so that everyone can budget accordingly. If you want to shoot a 4-day commercial and you need X, Y, and Z, the budget is there or thereabouts to then be able to say this is how much it would cost, and turn around or time off the clock, as it's named in our agreement, is paid for. But I'm not sure there'd be many crew that would love to have lots and lots of time off the clock, because you still got to drive home, you still got to drive in. It's still going to have an effect on you, one, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of those illies that can be
yeah.
affected. So it's interesting that even though there are those there, it still does happen. But I wonder whether it needs to be greater. So going past midnight in commercials, it's triple time. And that
Yeah.
no one ever wants to go into triple time because that will absolutely annihilate a markup.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think what has been interesting about the Broken Turnaround campaign with BECTU is that everybody agrees. It's been quite interesting going in to talk to producers and their representatives. Everybody agrees that it's a bad thing.
Mm,
And everyone wants to make sure that crew are getting their proper rest. But the problem is like the mechanisms for how to make sure that happens is where everybody very slightly disagrees. I think I don't think it's a hard thing. Think, I think what's difficult is that, as you say, the realities on the ground are there's a little bit of denial going on. People say, oh, well, it's a 10-hour day, but it never really is. There's, in my part of the industry, very much like it's a bit Wild West still. It's better than it used to be
mm.
in some ways. In some ways, it's worse. But I think what's been interesting about this campaign in the union is how it's really made us realize there's so much common ground between the genres across television and film. So for different reasons, I think, and there are different ways in some ways that we have to tackle the problem. But it's been really amazing to sort of sit in rooms with people from costume and wardrobe, and from hair and makeup, and from locations, and then us, who are the kind of unscripted, the non-drama side of things, and really kind of just have common ground, which is that everybody wants to have a reasonable. Everybody loves their jobs, they love what they do, but they want to be able to also see their families, see their friends, have some sort of life. And it's interesting because I had was saying to someone, the problem with things being impossible to do in a normal, like the problem with days being so incredibly long and impossible to maintain beyond a certain level, is that it's sort of inherently discriminatory as well. So you look at, like, if you have a family, if you have caring responsibilities, if you have a disability, if you have lots of things like that, it becomes harder and harder to sustain a career, because in reality, a lot of women will have experienced this mostly, but like, even, as a parent, as a man in the industry, as a parent, I've experienced it. And I know a lot of fathers like me as well. You just have to give up whole parts of the job because you can't be present on location for that long and still see your kids ever.
No.
And I think lots of
All they
industries
see
like
is
that.
the little, the extra pair of socks that's in the kind of washing basket. They're like, oh, Dad was home. There's some clothes in
Yeah.
there because you're up before they're awake and you're home when they're in bed.
And like, nobody really wants that. And I'm not saying, oh, it should, that we shouldn't be having long days or working long hours. But I think what's really clear about, and I think why the Broken Turnaround campaign has resonated with people, is that it's a very clear line in the sand, essentially, to
So
say
talk
this
us
is.
through what is it that BECTU and the Broken Turnaround campaign is doing, why
Yeah,
it
I probably
started,
should have
and what
talked
its
about that
aims are.
first. Um, Probably should have talked about that first. So
That's good. I like it. It comes to a natural point. It's good.
I'm a rep. So I'm a rep on the unscripted branch committee. I have been for 5 years or so. We're a relatively new branch in the union. We are sort of like a key part of the campaign, partly because we represent a sort of part of the industry that isn't represented anywhere else. But so as quite a lot of the other branches have come along to lots of meetings. The campaign really comes out of this. BECTU did a survey last year asking people, are you getting the minimum 11-hour break between shifts? And they asked everyone from, big studio films to TV drama and factual production as well. And the response was a sort of like overwhelming, not a lot. People do, but I think the response has been quite big. I don't have the statistics in my head, but there were, and actually it was this sort of like qualitative responses, people's telling their stories, that I think really spurred everyone on a little bit, about people talking about never seeing their children, never getting home, about the health and safety aspect of driving your car on the motorway after a 17-hour day.
Well, you're not insured,
Driving.
for one. Your
Well,
insurance
like,
be null and void.
well, exactly. And, and so actually BECTU's been, it's a sort of multi-pronged. They approached the Health and Safety Executive, which is a government agency that looks after health and safety across all workspaces in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, did you know this is a thing and this is happening in this industry? And it's been about a year of conversations, and they were quite interested in how the industry is not self-regulating itself in that way, and is the industry really endangering its workers from a purely health and safety point of view, partly from the driving thing, but also I think, on set, big sets and stuff are intricate places. So that's been one wing of the conversation. We've also then been talking to PACT, which is the producers association, so the association of production companies in London and the UK, and had some actually really great meetings about it. Everybody agrees that it shouldn't be a problem, but it's sort of stalled a little bit. Partly, I think, because we also made it clear that to really enforce this would require essentially a sort of negotiation on terms, both in scripted, on hours generally, and increasing the penalty on broken turnaround. But from an unscripted point of view, really starting to talk about how do we regulate terms and conditions across our part of the industry. And there's sort of lots of arguments against that. Like, the unscripted has really struggled in the last sort of 3 or 4 years post-COVID. There was a sort of boom post-COVID. I know this happened to everybody.
Yes.
But then a lot of money just suddenly left our part of the industry in the last couple of years. And there's lots of reasons for that. It's been coming a long time. But unfortunately, people then use that as a reason not to improve working conditions. And our argument is, well, surely those who are working should be protected, and these should be quality jobs, not jobs that are a race to the bottom for like, how many people can we break before we run out of people. I mean, that is sort of like, we talked before, like, you get told, I mean, nobody's ever said this to my face, obviously, but this is the kind of thing that crew and freelance workers say to each other, which is that, oh, if I don't do the job, they'll just get somebody else. And it's sort of an implied thing in the idea that you are replaceable, which I've realized over the years is just not true, because you have skills and those skills are necessary. And as a freelance worker and as a person with experience, you bring skills to the job. Unfortunately, what's happened since the market slowed down is suddenly there are a lot more people looking for work than there are jobs. And so, if anything, production companies have sort of gone, oh, well, it's just a welfare issue, so we'll do lots of education around broken turnaround and stuff. And we just don't think that's enough. So yeah, but I think it's largely positive, to be honest. A lot of what we're trying to do in our sector is educational in some ways. Is just to say to people, I think I said it when we went on our walk, which we'll talk about. We did a little.
We became Instagram famous.
Like,
I'm gonna get an autograph at the end of this.
It was very, very sweet. But no, we BECTU organized like essentially we joked, it was like Amazon to Netflix. I can't remember who. There is a company that begins with a Z, but I don't think we got there. But anyway, we went from place to place, essentially just wanting to walk across London, and got the tube at one point. But to raise awareness that we want people to start talking about this openly.
Yes.
We want people to start questioning schedules. You are allowed to. And also BECTU has written to production companies and has written to PACT on their who represent those companies, saying we are telling our members to think about this carefully. Obviously, the head above the parapet thing, you don't want to be the person causing trouble. So in some ways, we feel like that's the union's job on your behalf.
Yes.
On our behalf is to kind of be making the noise. I apparently don't seem to mind raising my head above the parapet. But I think it was interesting to see the reaction to that walk. And I really think it means we should be doing more. Just more talking. I think there's a sort of like a bit of denial. I think a lot of production companies and a lot of, they're good people. They're not bad people. I think there's a lot of denial about how hard people are being pushed. And there's also like a sort of sense of, I don't know if you've ever felt this on a job. You feel like we're all in this together. It's sort of trauma bond. We joke about trauma bonding a lot in TV.
Totally. 100%.
Like some of my best friends, I still have friends in TV from the worst jobs. Other ones that I kept my friends. People crying in the corridors. It's only when you talk to other industries where you're like, oh yeah, there's one company, there was a corridor we called the crying corridor. Like, everybody used to go in there and cry. And I used to I've only cried twice, I think. Anyway, I can't remember when. But
definitely one was in the corridor. That's why
it
got his name.
I never cried. I'm quite proud I never cried at the BBC, which was at one point a very normal thing to do.
Yes. That was a crying building.
It was. I loved working. I will say I loved working at the BBC. It's one of my favorite places to work.
They make some amazing programs.
Well, also just like it was interesting. I'd always been an indie person, like an outside, I'd always been on the outside of that large institution, and so I think it was 10 years ago I worked there properly for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. But I think everywhere could be better, and I think that really we feel like, and I personally feel like, that our campaign is not a campaign of like antagonism. It's a campaign of this could be better. How do we all work together to make that better? And I think PACT, everyone agrees, like the joint statement from BECTU and PACT that came out like last summer after our first meeting essentially just said that we will work together to eliminate broken turnaround across genres and create a safer working environment. So I think that's all on the table. It's just how is harder to do. And I think our job as a union is to keep, I don't even work for them, but like our job as reps is to keep pushing that and to keep communicating with the members to say like we are doing something, and really that it requires participation. I think unions require its members, like they're member organizations, they're not corporations. They are really effectively run by the members. They are paid for by the members. The members, it's democratically represented throughout the union, and I think the only way that it can be better is if everybody takes part. And that's what we're also trying to encourage as well, is that really it's only as a group of people, because it's so fragmented. I work in an industry where sometimes you can be on a team of 3 people in a building and you never talk to anybody, and it's very siloed, like the entertainment people work here and the documentary people work here, and it's never together. And so the kind of old school union conversations on the shop floor don't happen. And so it's very hard to have that conversation. And I think what we're saying is this is the only way to do it, really, is if we do it together. And we just sort of ask for very basic things. It's not revolutionary. I think it's, please, can we have enough sleep so we can function, I think is a very basic thing. But also just do our jobs better and well, and want to come back. I know so many people who are leaving for lots of reasons. Some of it is there's just not that much work at the moment. But I know other people who are leaving who are just tired. I don't know anybody my age who wouldn't voluntarily take another job if it came along. And that's sad because it's a great industry, and the British unscripted. We used to make I was looking at the BBC Green Paper, the Charter Renewal Green Paper in April, and I read the whole thing. And there's, we make a substantial percentage. I can't remember the number. It's something like 25% of the world's unscripted content
Wow.
comes from here. It's a real powerhouse industry, or it used to be anyway. And I think that the people who make that content should be, happy and rewarded,
Yes.
rather
Well,
rather
also,
than miserable and burnt out. I
yeah.
think is
Well, and I think this is, I'm going to say across the board, but the amount of friends or close work friends that are debating about leaving or thinking about leaving or have left, and you suddenly look at who is going to be here doing these jobs in, let's say, 10 years time. If all of those experienced people have felt like they couldn't sustain a career in it, then all of that knowledge, wisdom, experience, magic that they have to kind of pass on kind of loses a generation. And then everyone's
yeah.
coming into an even, a Mad Max Wild West where it's just the norm that there are no that everything is just race to the bottom. So I
Well,
think it's a bit of a, not crunch time, but we're at a very precise moment in the industry. As you said, COVID came, wiped us all out as an industry. But then there was this huge boom. Then that kind of petered off. Then we had the strikes in
yeah,
23 that I don't know whether had an effect in your world, but affected a lot of the short form and long form people. So it's kind of coming out the back of that, and I don't know whether there were so many huge investment funds, VCs, that got burnt losing hundreds of millions in the creative industry. They're like, we're not going to bother putting any more money in. So it's
yeah.
this strange little moment in time where we make such amazing things. This country, I'd be very hard pushed to find another country of our size that has such a strong, experienced, and frankly amazing team of creatives and crew that can do high end at such a phenomenal level.
It's crazy. Like I went to a distributors thing last year, and there are distributors who are saying they can sell stuff. So like, please, more British content, more British content. We can sell it around the world. Like, like my, fact end type stuff, celebrity on a canal boat. They love that stuff all over the world, and nobody's making it. So,
There you go. Celebrities on houseboats. Let's do it. If it's not already been done, let's.
but you can't get it commissioned. So
Yeah.
the primary British investment, or the investment in programs, has gone down to the point where there are people willing to buy something, but we can't make it anymore. And I think it is all linked together. I think that it is a crunch time. I worry that the entire culture of production that I grew up in is going, along with the ethic. I work in a part of the industry where, we're working with real people. We're obviously
Mm-hmm.
often interviewing people about their actual lives. There's an ethics and sort of editorial judgment thing that goes with that. I've made lots of history shows where you had to have a pretty rigorous attitude to how you were doing things, and that feels different to almost everywhere else. I mean, the Americans have it too. I mean, I've not, and other countries do, obviously, but I think there's a sort of culture of production that was unique to the UK that I think we've sort of just letting go away, and everybody threw their lot in with American studios
Yeah.
and big tech companies, and they all changed their minds a little bit. I mean, I don't know the exact. There's lots of reasons why the money's gone away a little bit, but it's complicated. But I think really a race to the bottom, where, as I said, like where we burn people out until we run out of people, doesn't feel like how we should be fixing the problem.
No.
And I think not enough people in senior positions are quite aware enough of how bad it really is,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how low people feel. And 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 the fact that the jobs that are left, people are being, we know as a branch, people who are working are being asked to work longer and longer hours and often do two people's jobs. So that means fewer people are working, and more people are being burnt out. Uh, I
We
think
hide
that's,
it well as
yeah,
one as an industry and two as a country. There's a especially in and I'm gonna speak in broad terms here, but it, I'm more than 100% sure that I have friends or people that I know that would go to work and have a secure 9 to 5 and would be very forthcoming about everything that isn't going well in their life and use that as an excuse to maybe not be on at 100% on a weekly on a week. And if it was really bad, then their company would be able to say, look, go and have some time off.
yeah,
It doesn't matter how bad what has happened. And I say this, and I'm not going to say names, but a few years back, I was on a job. I was with a gaffer I hadn't seen in ages. I was seconding, so you kind of I'm off the set and blah blah blah. Come on set, and I see him. I'm like, oh, how are you, mate? And I don't know if it's in the same effect, but any story, anything that you kind of start with a crew member has to be really short because you never know when you're going to get pulled away. So I was like, oh, long time. How you been? He went, oh yeah, I got cancer. I was like, what? And then all of a sudden, his DP asked him over, and he had to start moving lights. And I'm like, that to me was the industry in a nutshell. It's like you get cancer in this industry, you're back at work, you're still doing your thing, you're cracking on with it. You don't really, he only told me because I knew him and we were friends, but he wouldn't be going around telling everyone. And he's there doing what he does without any probably hesitation of thinking that he wouldn't give 100% or whatever he could for that
yeah.
day.
I mean, I think I said to someone, I think I definitely realized I was slightly addicted to the crisis.
Mm,
Um, so like almost the coming in, I joke about this, but it is true. When I'm not working, I miss the sort of adrenaline of it's all gone to hell. How do we fix this?
yeah.
Kind of feeling of being a problem solver. And I think that it attracts a certain kind of person generally who
Yeah.
I'm not, and it's not actually a health. It's taken me a long time to realize it's not a healthy thing.
No,
Um,
that adrenaline, all of those chemicals flying through your
well,
body and the
the
caffeine and the thing to
the
get
job
there.
is it's it can be great, and it is, the rewards are, not talking about like money, but the rewards can be brilliant. You get to work
Yes.
with amazing people.
Yes.
I love working with the people that I work with. Um, I've met some of the smartest people I know work in our industry. Some of the most interesting, some of the most boring too. But it swings and roundabouts. But I think like it's been really rewarding as a job, and
Mm,
the variety. Like I get bored really easily. I don't want to be in a room with the same, doing the same thing for 5 years. Like I can't. I struggle after 6 months, of the same.
next
So
thing,
like,
please.
yeah, it's terrible. Like I think the longest job I ever had, production I was ever on, was 18 months, and
Wow.
by the end, I was like, oh, I can't do it anymore.
It's time to
And
leave.
I should, which is crazy. Like my parents think I'm mad because they're just like, oh, but you could become staff at that production company, and I'm like, well, why would I do that?
Mm.
Now, of course, in my 40s, I'm like, damn it,
Ah, should have stayed.
should have stayed and been less of a sociopath. But I think like it's definitely that kind of thing. But it is interesting over time that wears pretty thin. And I think, it's exciting when you're young. And but I worry a lot about younger people being exploited.
Mm.
Actually, outside of, and we're talking about like the kind of quite professional sort of like broadcast television side of things. But then you've also got this other world that's slowly emerging, not slowly, sorry, very quickly emerging, of content creation
Yep.
where there almost are no no rules.
No.
So it's kind of, that is what concerns I worry about young people having to do all kinds of jobs where they're having to do those sort of hustle jobs, which is fine and good for them and great. But we talk about broken turnaround. I mean, there's bigger issues in the industry as a whole, but we really feel like this is an if we have this is like as I said, like a line in the sand. This has to be possible, surely, as a basic human right. And we are talking, and the union, to give it its due, is working on multiple fronts. Like we're talking to government about this kind of thing all the time. And there's a new, BECTU's been involved with the setting up of CISA, which is this kind of independent complaints office for freelancers or for all industries, but like somewhere that you can take your issues. Hopefully, the government's created a freelance champion specifically for freelance workers. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but the union was involved with that. So I think, and then direct negotiation. And there are lots of other organizations working across the industry who are working in these things and working towards making it better. But I really think that this is the actual freelance workers together talking about this to each other as well, but then also talking in groups and on platforms like this, to just make it. I don't know. I don't want to leave the industry worse than when I joined, and at the moment it sort of feels a little bit like that. To be fair, it was pretty rough when I started.
You've made it better. Let's just
Well, no,
we'll
like
go with that.
There are lots of people who've made huge contributions. Like one of my colleagues on the committee, Jude, like she's been doing this for 25 years, helping especially younger people understand their rights, and really pushed a long time ago against unpaid work, things like that. And I admire that enormously. And I think, we've all got to stand up a little bit. I think that's the thing, is like you say, nobody wants to stick their head above the parapet, but nothing's going to change. Nothing will be better unless we're all a little bit willing to just take even the tiniest risk. And even if joining the union, or I don't know, retweeting, or not, does anyone do that anymore? Reposting something on Instagram, or I don't know, showing your friends. I think that helps. And that's signing the petition, like the petition against broken turnaround, but also against the sort of general culture of long hours, which we all sort of just accept as normal. So it is broader, but the petition has like 5,000 signatures now, which in theory is like a large chunk of the industry. But it could be more. And I really think that this is the start of a conversation that lots of people have been having, but I don't feel like this has been happening like across en masse into the same extent.
So if listeners were wanting to find information about Broken Turnaround, just type in BECTU Broken Turnaround campaign and it will all be there. Or is there somewhere specific they should go?
No, I think that should bring it up.
I'll put it in the link. I'll find the link and I'll put it in the description.
There are so many websites. There's also, and I will say also, just like Instagram is pretty useful at the moment. The BECTU account there's actually two. There's the BECTU Film and TV account, which is more just focused on our bit of the industry. And then there's the main BECTU Union account as well, which is quite useful. And they've been posting almost nonstop about this for the last month or so. We have our own Instagram, which is unscripted BECTU, where we sort of talk about our own stuff, but we've also been actively just like participating generally in the background. And yeah, I think that's what is required, is to keep it going, we're pretty determined to do more, have next steps. So the big campaign at the moment was really around Cannes, because they felt like a lot of film people would be in one place. But for us, that has less resonance with unscripted people. But we were very happy to join in and support, and we want to be sort of collectively helping out. But I would love to like keep going and do like our walk, but maybe do something else, like leave information. I don't know. We had jokes about putting stickers on doors. I don't know, but like I think ideas as well.
Nice.
People should be. I think we just need to be continuously showing some sort of action, and I think that's what people enjoyed about some of the recent campaign work is that it wasn't just conversation, it was actually physically us out and about talking to people. And I think we can do more of that, but we need more. I think if we could get 100 people on a walk, that would be huge.
Amazing.
That's how low, by the way, the participation rate these days. Like to get
two film sets, that's all we want.
I mean,
one big film set or just two small ones.
I do think that it is hard. People are busy, either busy filming all day and working, or they're terrified of not getting another job. And so I can completely see how hard it is to take part.
Fancy dress? Maybe we'll just turn up with masks on. Yeah, masquerade ball.
I mean, I will say, like, costume and wardrobe came fully. Like, they had merch. They've made sweatshirts. They came fully prepared. I felt underdressed, but I'm gonna ask them to make merch for us all next time.
Amazing.
But yeah, sorry, I keep rambling. But yeah,
no, it's amazing. Well, look, we kind of hitting that 45-minute mark, which always tends to kind of come very quickly. And I think what I've gauged from this episode is, one, and most importantly, how much you love what you do and the industry and the people that you work with. And I think it's a really interesting time for the industry as a whole, with technological advances, with budgets, etc. But humans will always want to be entertained, will always want to have something to watch or to listen to. And I think what the Broken Turnaround campaign is highlighting or showing is that those people that make those programs that everyone loves are having a bit of a sticky time. And it's not even an unrealistic or ungodly request. It's just trying to have the minimum legal requirements between leaving work and coming into work. And we are humans, we are not robots. We need to reset. We need to just let the adrenaline, I don't know about you, but you kind of come home after one of those days, it takes a good half hour, 45 minutes, just to let the adrenaline flush out and just calm and be and be ready to go to sleep. And then you set your alarm and it goes, oh, you're up in 4 hours, you're up in 3 hours. So it's a really, I think it's a really amazing cause. I think everyone should go on, everyone should sign, everyone should become part of it. Everyone should go and, if you're in the industry at all, be joining BECTU, be being part of a union, because these are the other people that are in your situation. So if you do feel like a lone wolf and you do feel like you don't have a voice, as you said, there are other people out there that feel the same, and there's a group of them there that will all try and have your best interests at heart. So thank you for coming on, and thank you for being so honest.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add, I think if we want a future where, like, content, things we watch are made by people and made by human beings, then we need to treat the people who make them like people, and that have lives. I think otherwise we might as well, I think it's this argument, I think we're at this really worrying inflection point where, yes, people want to be entertained, but are we in danger of sort of getting to a point where we're just consumers of content? Like, we just watch things that computers make and we don't actually make anything. And I think that is really dangerous. And one of the ways to hasten that unfortunate thing is just to not treat the people who make things as people with rights, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's vital, and that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Amazing. Well, any final, because I always like to end on a positive. I'm a big positive fan, and I agree with I agree with everything that we've said. And I guess if there's any glimmer of light or any hope or anything positive that you just want to end this episode to all of the listeners today?
Yeah, I think what's been so positive is seeing how everybody has, from across different genres, from different branches and skills, from different sectors and different crafts across the industries, has really come together on something in a way that they haven't for a while, I think. But I mean, and we're always working together as a union, but it feels very focused. It also feels like employers are also in agreement. I feel like it feels like a collective thing because they need us and we need them. And that feels very positive. I think we just want more people to realize that they are allowed to ask these questions, that they are allowed to ask for time, and that we will help them and support them. And I think that's a really positive thing, that more people are aware of, that they are allowed to, have a sustainable career is what I think.
Yeah, amazing. Well, look, ladies and gents, told you can have a lovely time listening. I think it's such an important, it's an important time for the industry, and these are really important topics because you, the listeners, everyone, are the generation that will be handing over the industry to the next generation. And I think what Dudley and BECTU and the team are trying to do is improve, even by a small little percentage each time, incrementally make the industry a wonderful place to work, a sustainable place to work, where you will have some of the greatest moments and meet some of the most wonderful people of this entire planet. So from all the Film God listeners, Dudley, thank you so much. Ladies and gents, thank you for listening. And until we meet again, that is a wrap.
Thank you.
So that was a chat with the king or queen in the game. I'll give it a shout at the end so you all know the name. It's the Film Gods Podcast. The what? The Film God Podcast.